and have an honest conversation about the various mental health stigmas. In this 1 hour with us, we will be covering two key topics. Firstly, we will find out how well our youths know their mental health. Secondly, we will also discuss how their families and peers can support them in their own mental health journey. To thank you for sharing your wonderful Friday evening with us, we have invited 5 really special guest speakers to share with us their experiences and inputs about mental health. It will be an interesting session where you will gain greater clarity on this profile and less chatted about topic. So without further
This Wi-Fi is very important. Technology law.
Hi everyone, I'm Benjamin, a leader with nEbO, and I'll be your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us today on a Friday night at our YouTube Live, happening from now to 9 p.m. I hope everyone is as excited as I am tonight. This session is going to be an intimate one as we dive right in and have an honest conversation about the various mental health stigmas. In this 1 hour with us, we will be covering two key topics. Firstly, we will find out how well our youths know their own mental health. Secondly, we will also discuss how their families and peers can better support them in their own mental health journey. Thank you for sharing your wonderful Friday evening with us. We have invited 5 really special guest speakers to share with us their experiences and inputs about mental health. It will be an interesting session where we will gain greater clarity on this profound and yet less chatted about topic. So without further ado, let me introduce our first guest, Dr. Tammy, who works as a consultant in the Department of Psychiatry at Sengkang Hospital. Second, we have the founder of Limitless Singapore, Mr. Asher Low, to give you guys some context about Limitless. Limitless is a non-profit organization that helps youths build hope, find birth, and live destiny-driven lives. So Asher, you may introduce yourself to the audience as well.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Lastly, let's say hi to the wonderful 3 ladies behind PeacePod, a youth-led mental health initiative powered by the young change makers. As you can tell, they are really young, and yes, they are currently still studying at Raffles Girls' School. Let's welcome Pooja, Judy, and Yuki.
Hi guys.
Hello.
So, I'd like to ask Dr. Tammy to share some thoughts about mental health. So maybe you can share some insights about what do you think about mental health, and you can share to the audience as well.
Okay, so I think with the past pandemic and the still ongoing COVID situation, I think clearly that mental health has come to the forefront. It's something that has not been spoken as much as until the past few years, and I think for very good reasons. Understandably, with the pandemic, everyone feels very anxious. There's a lot of uncertainty. and that naturally brings out with it a lot of emotions. So when we talk about mental health, what we are thinking about is that we are looking at aspects of health that encompass how we act, how we think, how we feel, and the relationship between all of that. And I think it's something that, because it's clearly not compared to physical health, it's not as well known, and you can't really see it all the time. In fact, what you see are the effects of mental health rather than the actual practical aspect of mental health itself. So it's something that is clearly very new. It's something we're talking about. And in the medical field, there's still a lot of research that still needs to be done. And so I think what is exciting is that we're talking about this now, both to create awareness, but also to understand that there is a much more understanding that needs to be gone to mental health. And in the reality of it, maybe 10 years from now, we'll be learning a lot more about mental health, and some of the things that we think we know now can still change, and I think that's actually very exciting for me as a doctor.
I do agree that mental health is still a stigma in the society today, and maybe like it's not something that many people would be open to share about in today's society. So why not we hear some thoughts from the three ladies here about what you guys would actually know about your own mental health, or maybe like if you know of friends that face mental health issues, how can you like better support them in your own journey? Maybe you can share some thoughts.
Okay, maybe I'll get the ball rolling. So I guess like as young people, there are many stress points in our lives. So as students, like going about our daily lives, there are many commitments that we are currently engaged in. So be it like our CCA, our studies. So, and there's this kind of like expectation dawned upon a lot of young people today, especially with given like there's a lot of competition in society, as well as that kind of self-expectation we have on ourselves to do better and become a better version of ourselves every day. So I guess that whole idea of like driving and pursuing a lot of next things in life makes a lot of our own state of mind very anxious. And the fact that we are constantly pushing ourselves on the edge to do better, I guess that has, to a certain extent, a bad effect on our own mental health. So yeah, from a youth perspective, that is what I think about mental health for young people today.
Yeah, I think that definitely as students, as youths, as actually human beings, actually, in this journey of life, it's mental health is really something that's being not very talked about, but it's actually very natural for us to struggle with it. And I think it's important for us to realize that we're all humans, and it's all very, very natural and perfectly valid for us to struggle sometimes, and for us to face our vulnerabilities bravely, and to address our mental health.
In my opinion, as youths, we are growing and we are constantly discovering new things about us as we think of the careers we want to pursue, the kind of people we want to be. And because of that, we're constantly going through many existential crises, in a sense. Like, we're trying to think of what we are, who we are, and because of that, we might face challenges to our mental health, being very overwhelmed with certain emotions at times. And I feel like the best way to support youths, or like anyone struggling with any mental wellness, is to really just be there to listen to them when they want to talk about something, and to be there to give your input and validate their feelings. Yeah.
So how about Asher? Maybe you can share your personal experience with mental health, because you actually run a non-profit organization that helps youth to build hope, and or maybe you can share some insightful thoughts about your own personal experience with mental health, perhaps, to the audience.
Well, thanks for asking me that. I mean, for me, mental health is a very personal thing, right? I mean, WHO says that it's a state of well-being, right? State of well-being in which every individual can, achieve their own potential. They can deal with normal stresses of life. They can work productively and contribute back to society. To me, it's more of an understanding that mental health is good balance. Now, I'm a social worker by training, and I'm also trained to do therapy, and I'm specifically trained to work with youth or people with trauma. And for me, it's when we talk about mental health in society, right? Mental health right now, what we are seeing at the community level is that we are seeing a huge increase in young people, particularly young people because that's where I work, right? But huge increase in young people who are struggling with more complex issues. More young people coming to us and reaching out to us for help for things like mood issues, things like depression, adjustment disorder, looking at anxiety-related issues as well, and surprisingly also trauma-related issues. Personally, from a personal perspective, I struggled with depression when I was younger. I struggled with body dysmorphia. So when I look at my own personal journey of growth, right, it took a lot. And the reality for me is, even as a professional, I still have relapses. But recovery is like that. It looks like this, right? But you will see yourself get better and better as time goes on. And that's really what we are trying to achieve with the young people that we work with, that they will be able to find themselves in a state of good mental health. Yeah, and find themselves in a state of recovery, when they reach there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Asher, for sharing. As I was looking through the comment section, there's this question from Kim where he asks, is feeling stressed a mental health issue? So maybe perhaps Dr. Tammy, would you like to address that question?
Yeah, so I think it's a very valid question. So I think the way we see it is that it is not very unlike, mental health is not unlike physical health. There's the health aspect, there's the illness aspect, but there's also the distress aspect. I think the difficulty is that for a lot of us, when someone is feeling stressed or feeling overwhelmed, does that fall under the mental distress or does that fall under the mental illness? And this is where sometimes having a professional come to look at it is helpful. But you can have mental illness and you can, like Asher mentioned, you can be in recovery, your symptoms are fine. And you cannot have a mental illness, you can be in significant mental distress, and that's when you can still get symptoms where you know that something's not right with your body. So if you ask me, I think it depends how long the distress has been going on for. So if the stress is a protracted period, then clearly that's when I would talk about getting professional help. But if it's very understandably a reaction to something that, say, the youth have been talking about exams, you didn't do well on your exams, you're feeling down, you're feeling stressed because you've got the exams coming up, I think that's almost, I would say, you can ask the youth, I think it's quite a normal reaction. The question is, how much is that affecting you? Is it affecting you to the point you can't sleep? Your biological functions are affected, you can't eat, and all of that? Or is it just a few hours you cry out and then you're stressed, but you're able to still manage it, you're still able to function? And so I think it's a very nuanced question, and it's really how is the level of function, really.
So moving on to that, is there any tips that you can recommend to balance mental health and also success at work or studies at the same time?
Wow.
One of the questions from the comment section.
Yeah, so I think doctor or not doctor, I think all of us will face stress. I think anyone in Singapore is understandably going to face quite a lot of stress. And I mean that in the sense where I think it's important to normalize that life can be difficult. We need to expect challenges. And it's about recognizing that we do need to take care of our health to be able to face those challenges. So in terms of the tips, I think actually the most important thing is to be aware of our health. So just to use a physical example, a lot of times I go to work, I take my physical health for granted until I get the flu. And then talking is difficult, thinking is difficult, and then that's when I realize, my gosh, I've taken my physical health for granted. Mental health is pretty much the same. A lot of times we just need to recognize and just be aware of it first. And by being aware of it, and next, most importantly, not judging how we feel. The same way we don't blame ourselves when we've got flu, I don't think it's fair to blame ourselves when we recognize that we are in distress or we're struggling with something. And it's to recognize that take a pause, recognize that when you've gone through whatever you're going through now, you've probably gone through a little bit of that in the past. Maybe look back, see what has helped. Is it connecting with people? Is it just taking some time out, saying that I need some space, I'm just going to breathe and listen to music. So it's really what helps you. Some people really, they do well with connection, some people do well with nature, some people do different things. And it's really recognizing that you have the ability to, you have resources to draw on, you have family, you have friends to draw on, and even if you feel you can't reach out to them, I think that's where really, organizations like Limitless, they will come in to help. Talking to someone is always helpful. Just bouncing ideas off. It doesn't really need to be like, intensive counseling and all of that. Just having that connection generally helps. But it always has to start off first with the awareness. And I think that's really the most important.
I do agree with your point because even for myself, I'm also a student right now. So I do experience burnt out at some point of my academic stage of my life. But to me, I didn't really thought of it as an issue. I kind of just brush it aside. But it's only until I dive deeper and research and found out it's actually burnt out. So I kind of find ways to balance it out. So listening music or going out, spending time with friends, things like that. So that's how I would manage that. So maybe I like to ask the ladies how would you balance mental health with studies, especially you guys might have a lot of homework and things to do in school, extracurricular. So how would you guys handle such situation? Yeah, maybe you guys can share some thoughts.
I think for myself, being aware of my current mental and physical state is very important. So, for example, I'm not really I don't really enjoy waking up early. So by the time I come home, I'm very tired. So I wouldn't force myself to get to work immediately, but take a nice lunch and watch TV in an aircon room, and then bathe and take a nap for a few hours. Then at 5, 6 o'clock, then I'll feel more ready to take on work, or if I feel that I have a better clarity of mind at night, then sometimes I'll start work a bit later. So I think and I try to optimize my different states that I observe over time that to be more suitable for myself. So I think it's important that you also make such observations for yourself and find out what works for you. Yeah.
For me, to regulate my mental health and to balance it when I'm, for example, experiencing a bit of stress with schoolwork, I find a very effective strategy to be to have a short distraction or to take a short break from my work. For example, just moving from my place and going to somewhere else, reading a short book, chapter in a book, or just talking to my family members. Sometimes that really helps me because it takes my mind off the stress I'm experiencing. Then when I come back to the work I was doing, I can look at it in a more objective point of view, and it helps me to reconfigure the way I look at things. And that really helps me to kind of make it feel better. Yeah.
Wow, that's really some amazing insights from every one of you all. And there's one question that's directed to Dr. Tammy and Asher. So the question is, based on your experiences, will one ever recover from mental health issues through time? And if not, how would you advise them on what to do?
You go first.
Well, when you think about recovery, we have to understand that recovery does not mean that there will be no relapse. Yeah. So recovery would mean, that I reach a point in my life whereby my mental health issue doesn't affect me anymore. So if, for example, I'm struggling with low moods, or I'm struggling, for example, with anxiety, I reach a point in time whereby, yes, the thoughts are still there, right? The thoughts are still going to come, but they no longer affect me. I'm no longer frozen by them. I'm no longer feeling so anxious that I cannot leave the house, because I still have the anxiety, but I can move on. And that's when we think about recovery, because recovery is when I can live effectively. My quality of life is no longer being affected by the mental health issue. And for many people, recovery is very, very possible. Right? It could be that my recovery requires me to take medication. It could be that my recovery requires me to go and see a counselor or therapist, to walk them through. Some people actually find themselves moving into recovery with just the support of friends, right? And that's fine. But the reality is that we need to understand that mental health issues, from what I understand from the research, aside from dementia, all mental health conditions can be or are recoverable. Yeah.
So I think most people understand mental health, like I mentioned previously, as separate from mental illness. So even if you were to have a mental illness, you can still recover from it. And again, I will go back to a physical health example because I think we all understand physical health better. You can have childhood asthma. When you grow up, sometimes it just goes away, but sometimes you still have it. And sometimes you can identify your triggers. There are certain things which trigger it. If you go into a room where they're massively drilling, you know you are going to get an asthma attack. So mental health is also, mental illness is not that different in that sense. You can have the diagnosis, but it is really the level of function. Can you do the things you want to do? You can recover and it may never come back. You can recover and for whatever reason, there are triggers, there are stresses, it can still come back. And so it is a really difficult question to answer. We all truthfully hope that the goal is of course cure. But if you were to look at even physical illness, our goal as much as it is cure, the first and most important thing is function. So whether you have depression, even you don't have depression, you have adjustment disorder, which is quite similar to having a lot of distress, mental distress, you can still recover from it. Does that mean you won't get it again? In the same way I can recover from flu, doesn't mean I won't get it again. We hope we don't, but we may need to accept the fact that as part of life, illnesses will happen, be it mental or physical. And that's just part of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that said, though, I just want to kind of add in that when we think about mental health, I think sometimes people use the word mental health to mean mental illness.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not right. It should be the opposite. Yeah. But there's in between, there is still distress.
Yes.
Stress, which all of us go through. If the light drops on my leg, I will be in distress. Right? I'll be in a lot of pain, a lot of distress. If I go down and I see that someone knocked into my car, I will go into a state of distress. Right? It's very real. Right? If you're a student and you fail your exam, right? There's a state of there's a state of temporary distress. But most of us are able to get out of the distress with time. Right? So we think about it from a perspective of having a balloon that's full of air. How much air you have in the balloon will determine how fast it will come back to the surface if I put it under the surface. All of us will, in time go under the surface because of life, right? And really, if someone is not mentally well, they will take much longer to come back to the surface versus someone who is mentally very, very healthy, super resilient, right? They will pop back to the surface very quickly. So when we think about someone who's struggling with their mental health, does not mean that they are mentally ill. Yeah. It could be that maybe they've just gone through a very tough period of time. Yeah.
It's been a really amazing, insightful thoughts from each one of you guys. So moving on to the second topic. So how can our loved ones, like our family and peers, support us in our mental health journey, or how can we support them in their mental health too? So let's hear some thoughts from Peacepod. Perhaps you guys can share how Peacepod was born and what are some things that you guys do to support your friends and loved ones who are facing mental health issues. So over to you.
Honestly, I think that whole idea of forming a robust support system is very important. And some people just don't have that support system. So that's where actually the whole idea of Peacepot actually came in. So it was born out of the idea that, hey, actually not everybody has that group of friends or supportive family members that they can actually turn to. So Peacepot essentially is a mini self-help website whereby people who need help, they want to untangle their emotions, they can just visit the website on their own. So it kind of lowers that barrier to seek help. And also there's that whole element of anonymity and people essentially judging us for seeking help. So we hope that, through that kind of website, it really encourages people to take the first step out. Because honestly, seeking help is it's not easy, and it takes a lot of courage. So yeah, that's essentially how PeacePod is born about. And on the note of how our family members and our friends can actually help, I think just lending a listening ear and being there for the people around us is the biggest help that we can give. Because sometimes it's not about the advice or the solutions that other people might want to hear, but maybe it's just that whole idea of getting something off their chest that really makes a difference.
Yeah, I think that all of us as people who interact with other people, we should always, when we see someone in distress or having any emotional reactions, we shouldn't be dismissive or judgmental about it, and to validate their feelings. And because the little things that we do, even if we didn't mean it with an ill intention, it can actually have an adverse impact on people, especially if they are really close and important to you. So I think it's very important that to our family and friends, we are compassionate and we do not judge them for any actions that they have done or any feelings they're feeling, even if we don't agree with them, but to ask them and inquire more to understand them as a person and not be so judgmental about it.
So there's one question that I look across the comment section, and it says that how can we be there for our friend who are struggling, and how we can support them without affecting our own mental health? So maybe are there any thoughts that you guys would want to share about that question in the comment section?
I would say the first step to being there for someone and to supporting them is to know that it's like the same way you wouldn't judge someone and you would want to lend them a listening ear to help them, do that to yourself too, and make sure that you are also accepting of yourself, because that's when you are in the proper state and you have the mental capacity, the emotional capacity to be there for someone, to try to learn new strategies to help someone out, even if you're unsure about it. There's always a lot of online websites or even other professionals or even other peers that you can ask for like advice on how to support someone. But the very first step that you have to take is to really make sure that you are able to do that by giving yourself the time and the space to also reflect and to make sure that you are able to work out your own emotions before you lend the listening ear to someone else. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I was scrolling through the comment section, and there's this really long question which says that, does crying every day feel devastated and stressed due to personal problems, can it be considered as like a mental health issue already? Do you think with this situation, should I seek help from professional? Maybe Dr. Tammy and Asher would like to answer this question.
You can start first, I'll do the professional one.
I think if you're crying every day, you should seek help. Yeah, because it's very real, right? You know, do you still want to continue crying every day? I think that's a challenge, definitely. Sometimes it's difficult, right? We go through difficult times, and if you are, earlier on we were talking about quality of life, and if you're crying every day, that's not good quality of life, right? You're devastated all the time, even if it's adjustment. So earlier on we were talking about adjustment disorder. So adjustment disorder is just like a very short period of time, right? Whereby you have very intense emotions, you're not able to function properly, right? You have all the signs and symptoms of depression, but it's because you went through something, right? And when we think about someone who is struggling and crying every day, essentially you are not bouncing back to the surface lah, when we talk about the balloon. So yes, definitely I'll encourage you to talk to someone, right? You can write to any organization out there. There are many organizations, Limitless, SKH, right? If you feel like you need to see a doctor, the best way is to go to a polyclinic first, get a referral. If you feel you want to see a psychologist, and you want to see a counselor or social worker, you can write into us at Limitless.actually/talk, or you can go to any of the many mental health organizations out there like SAMH, Clarity, Touch, there are many out there, right? So help is available. And if you really, feel like you really don't want to go anywhere, if you're a student, there's a school counselor lah. Yeah, although I'm not sure whether or not you are willing to see the school counselor. Yeah. So yes, feel free to seek help, and you should.
Thank you so much, Asher, for sharing your thoughts. How about Dr. Tammy? Maybe you want to add on some pointers?
I think, so first I want to commend the person who is commenting. I think the fact that the person, whoever you are who's commenting, number one, you're showing awareness
Yeah.
that something is at least not quite right. And actually that is the biggest thing that should cue anybody in that I need to take it seriously. And so for I think the obvious answer is that yes, you know, whoever you are deep down, that something's not right. This may not be where you want to be in the long run, and hopefully not. And this may not be how you were like in the past. Or this is maybe just the time where you recognize that, hey, this is something I need to work on. And so for that reason, yes, definitely seek help. I think seeing a doctor, there is the wait time, so there may be some issues there. But the reality is that because if you're crying every day, find someone to talk to. If you can't talk to in person, there are chat options as well.
Yeah.
You can do an email. There's a call option. So there are many options out there. But I think the most important thing is let someone in.
Yeah.
Or even if you can't let someone in, open the door a little bit so that there is a form of communication. And I think that's really going to be key.
Yeah.
And-
Talking about the chat options, maybe you should give them some of those
Yeah.
options. So if you feel like you need to talk to someone right now, right? There's the National Care Hotline. You can Google that. I cannot remember it off the top of my head. You get someone almost very quickly. That's ec2.sg, right? You can reach out to us at Limitless, but there's a wait time for us as well. But you can join our Safe House Discord channel. You can find that on our IG or on our TikTok. SOS has a care text, right? So there are many options right now that if you really need to talk to someone, there are multiple options. Yeah, but if you feel right that you need to see someone face to face, then feel free to make feel free to make an appointment with any of the mental health organizations out there, and there might be a bit of a wait time, right? But it'll be worth it lah. It'll be worth it.
And of course with that, if at any point, so we're talking about distress can be so great that there are suicidal thoughts. If there's a need to, the options would be to call the IMH helpline, the SOS helpline. But of course, if you really, it's really unbearable, and the thoughts are very strong, and the distress is very prominent, just go and seek help at any A&E. If you need to go to the GPs also, they can help facilitate that as well. So just thought I'll share that.
Personally, for myself, I do come across friends who face mental health issues. So like being their classmate or being their friend is always good to be able to help them. Even though I'm not trained in counseling or like something like that, at least I can be there to be their pair of listening ear. So when I heard some thoughts from you guys, at least this is something I can share to them if they really don't know like where to go to seek alternative helps and all. So when I was going through, I saw this question whereby it says, I think turning to professional help has always been the right direction to take when one is struggling with mental health issues. But what if the students don't have the capacity or the ability to pay for maybe the consultation or the treatment given the cost involved? What can they do? What should they do or who should they look out for?
Okay.
Yeah.
School counselor is always free, but I understand, that not everybody wants to go to the school counselor. There's a lot of stigma around school counselor. So actually a lot of the mental health organizations out there are free, or we are able to provide pro bono services for people who might be struggling or youth who might be struggling. So Limitless, right? If you come to us and you are unable to pay, we will provide that service to you for free. And I believe I can say the same for many other organizations as well. And Dr. Tammy can chime in, but if you go to a hospital or a doctor and you're unable to pay, right, be it whether or not that's your family circumstance or maybe your parents are not supportive of you at all, right, and you're able to kind of justify that you can't get that money but you still need that help, right? There's always things like Medifund, the medical social workers can step in. Yeah.
So I believe that in the financial aspect, I mean, I think that part we are quite thankful that there are a lot of avenues and that yes, financial, I think all Singaporeans are worried about that, which is very normal.
Yeah.
But I think also we recognize that the need for, that treatment should be regardless whether you can pay or not. So I wouldn't be, and not to dismiss the worries about finances, but if there is a genuine need for help and there's a genuine reason why payment is going to be an issue, like Asha mentioned, there is a lot of support in terms of the social workers can do a lot of support in terms of in the professional sense, and perhaps it is really just the journey to take that step first, and I think across most healthcare professions, we recognize that our duty is as a duty of care to the patients first, and the financials back end, we will leave and we will trust our social workers to sort that out actually. So I would like to sort of just reassure the person who's worried about finances that that really shouldn't be something that you should be too concerned about. And as with most things, like talking about mental health, if finances is a concern, talk to the social worker about it, talk to your doctor about it. I'm sure they'll work something out.
Thank you so much. So there's a really kind comment from one of the viewers that says, thank you so much. For me, one of the reasons why we don't seek help from professionals is that we are also afraid to accept from ourselves that there's something wrong with us. And she say, anyway, thanks a lot. So there's a question that is especially for the Peacepot girls. So it is like, how's the journey like for you guys to curate such avenue for youths? So maybe you guys can share something from...
Honestly, the journey was not easy, and I think we took a lot of revisions in terms of how exactly we wanted to provide this platform and also reach out to the different youths. Because essentially, maybe we will like backtrack time. So we started off thinking about maybe we should make this kind of a person-to-person letter writing platform. But then we had some considerations about, what if people are not, ready to actually provide that form of advice to other people, and maybe there are better avenues like professional help that will be more constructive. So essentially we don't seek to actually replace or be a direct alternative to seeking professional mental health, but we wanted our platform to be kind of that immersive first step for people to be able to turn to, sometimes I believe at the whole idea about the reaction versus feeling distress over a long period of time. So sometimes these emotions are very are felt according to certain things that happen. So these kind of events really build up over time, and it really takes that kind of trigger for something big to happen. So essentially we wanted to be that kind of small steps and encourage more people to build mental health and mindful habits to be able to better react accordingly and untangle their emotions, so that this kind of the whole idea of their mental state and their state of mind wouldn't deteriorate and go down the spiral down the wrong way, but it's kind of that first step for everybody to take. Yeah.
How about Yuki and Pooja? Do you have anything that you want to add on to what Judy has mentioned?
I think maybe I'll speak in terms of content. So at first, when we were thinking of the reflection questions, we really wanted to provide something that was beyond simply surface level, in a way that well, I've personally read quite a lot in this area also, that because inside of us, I'm sure that there's a way for us to, we know exactly what we need to do, and I believe with the right questions, we're able to prompt them out of ourselves. So I think a lot of our Peacepod questions, reflection questions are striving to work towards this area, so that if you feel any inertia to, or any resistance to want to seek some external help, this is something you can do for yourself, and to look inwards to find the strength and the correct direction that you need to take. Yeah.
And because we are all youths and we have also experienced a bit of stress from time to time, I think we all also understand that sometimes we just feel a bit confused about what's going on in life. There's so many things to take note of, and sometimes we just need a bit of help to sit down and think about what we are feeling stressed about, like what Judy and Yuki have mentioned. So I think our main goal when we tried to come up with this project was to give ourselves an avenue, not just youths, but anyone, this avenue to learn more about yourself and maybe to also like help to monitor yourself, which is very important, as Dr. Tammy and Asha have mentioned. So yeah, like a first step, I would say.
Wow, that's really great, hearing like many different information coming from like the five of you guys. And I do understand that time is running out, and there's a really curious question that the audience would like to ask is, how would all of you all rate your mental health, and why would be that rating to support your mental health? Anyone can start. Maybe Asher, you can start.
What's the score? 0 to 10, is it?
0 to 10.
0 to 10.
10 is the best, 0 is...
You know, there's a running joke in our industry that says that you working in mental health, how's your mental health? So, at this point of time, I would say it's a 5. Reason being that it's World Mental Health Month, and because of that, all the mental health professionals don't have a good month. We're all busy, right? And we're working overtime and all that stuff. But that said, though, you know, we understand that it's really just because we are going through a very, very busy peak period right now. Sometimes feel like we have no time to breathe, but it's all good because come 2 weeks time we'll be back to normal, and then it's gonna be like 7, 8, and good again. Yeah. But that said though, does not mean that my mental health is bad lah. Right now, it's just that it's more of a stressful period for me.
Yeah. So I think for myself also, I think we understand it is the high time. And of course, if you expect the high time, we do our best to anticipate for the high time. So even for my mental health, I think my health is generally at least about 6. But if you're going to talk about how stressed I'm feeling, I would say, and I will confess that even before I came here, I was feeling very tired. I was very busy the whole day. And so probably if I were to rate it then, probably my mood was probably about 4 and 5. But that's the dynamic nature of the mood. And now I come here, I meet so many people who are enthusiastic about it, that recharges me. And it's been a pleasure and it's a joy. And because of that, my mood has lifted up. And so, you know, I think also recognizing that your health, your mood can fluctuate, and have that compassion and just be aware and just hold the fact that it's a stressful month. We don't have to beat ourselves up because we're stressed about it. I think that's really going to be quite important. Yeah.
Breathe.
Yes.
Breathe.
That's right, breathe and just let it out.
Yeah, and connect with people who will help you. And if you need that space, you just need that space. You need that space to sleep. That's entirely possible as well. Yeah.
How about the 3 ladies? How would you guys rate your own mental health out of 10, and why?
Honestly, I think personally for me, I'm at a pretty good state of my mind right now because like this room is so nice and we just finished our exams. So honestly, my state of mind is pretty good. And if there's anything to stress about, it's like I'm stressing about having nothing to do. So I would say that I'm quite privileged lah.
Yeah, I think with the whole exam thing over, everything is they're much lesser things, so it's much easier to manage. I think with mental health, for me personally, like it's a lot to do with whether I feel like I can manage it, and it's at a state where I can, like, there's still things that stress me out, but I think I'm able to, they're not that many, so I can still like accept it and then come to peace with it and still be functioning. It was not like that a period a while ago, but I'm very, very happy that it is right now. So I'll say now it's about 7 to 8. Yeah.
For me personally, I would think it's about a 6. Like what Judy and Yuki mentioned, our exams are over, so it's like an end of a very stressful period of time. So it's much better compared to before. But now that exams are over, there are many other things to think about. Personally, I have a few external commitments that I'm still coping, like trying to balance with my own personal life and trying to give myself more time. And we're also secondary 4 students, so we're graduating soon and moving on to like a new environment. So like a few overwhelming emotions about that, but I'm coping pretty well, so that's good, I guess.
But I want to say congratulations for completing that, and a new chapter is going to be awaiting for you guys. So I think meanwhile you guys can like chill and relax first, you know, just like relax yourself and just unwind and do the things that you want. Yeah. And there's a question that I saw in the comment section that asks about what are some good reminders to tell ourselves if we are having a bad mental health day, for example. Maybe Asher or Dr. Tammy can address something about this.
You can ask them what they did when they were stressed with the exam.
Yeah, they just went through the exams.
Okay. So maybe how about the 3 ladies you can share like some good reminders that you can tell yourselves if you are having like, for example, a really bad mental health day, for example, or maybe you have friends that went through this situation. Yeah. Feel free to share. Anyone?
Okay, maybe I'll go. I think the whole idea of like tomorrow will be a better day like gives me some hope. So like maybe like thinking about a better alternative, or like honestly, like during my exam season, I planned a lot for what happens after the exam. So it really keeps me going, and I think the whole idea of like being proud of myself at the end of the day, like makes me driven to do what I do.
I think when I'm stressful, well, I try to look for when does this all end, and if it's too far away, then I think of, well, what's the lesson tomorrow? It's a early day tomorrow, so I can come home early, or okay, I'll do 1 more hour and then I can watch TV and like do something I like, or sleep early. Like there's some like little things to look forward to even when I'm busy, so that I can recharge and be in a better state and be more ready to face it later. I think for me, like personally, my emotions are quite intense, so as long as I'm able to like have it at a manageable state, I'm quite okay to do anything. Yeah.
For me, I would think that because we all went through exams as a school and like with our other batchmates, so seeing like if we're having a particularly bad day, know that the other people who might be also facing the same thing, and it's okay to feel that way. Sometimes we face highs and lows, and it's inevitable that we face these lows, and my personal thought process would be what can I learn from it and what I can do better, or what I did better compared to some other time that keeps me going and motivated. Yeah.
I believe that I can resonate with you guys on this because I just finished my first semester of school, and coming back to school I do have a lot of expectation for myself. So when I do receive a bad grade or something, I always believe that someone once told me that the grass is always green on the other side, you know, and there's always like good things that's going to happen. So I feel like I don't let grades define who I am, yeah, and rather work on what I can improve and develop as a student or as an individual. So hearing that from you guys do make me feel like at least I also experienced something like that, because I also just finished my exams recently as well. So yeah, quite happy about that. So the past hour has been both insightful and eye-opening for me. I'm sure it's the same for our audience behind their screens at home. Sadly, we are coming to the end of the YouTube Live, but before we bid our goodbyes, we have got a special announcement to our members and youth viewers. nEbo will be launching our very own peer supports program, and it will be happening very soon. Do keep a lookout on our socials to find out more details. Thank you for joining us tonight, and nEbo cares for you and your mental health. Goodbye.